Welcome into Bengals Breakdown. I am your host, Stone Shields, and we are back here at the NFL Combine in Indianapolis, Indiana for our second video here on the channel. And coming up on today's show, we're going to be breaking down some of the formal meetings that Cincinnati has had with top prospects. As of filming, obviously this is kind of changing at all times, right? But we've got a good list, a lot of high-profile names in there that I'm sure you guys will be intrigued about. We're going to be diving into that on today's show. But before we get into that, make sure you guys like today's video for me. If you have not done so already, we only have 2 days left in the month of February, and the Ravens channel has pulled ahead of us here at Bengals Breakdown. So we really need to go off here these last 2 days. We're going for at least 500 likes on today's show. So help me out. Hit that thumbs up icon if you haven't done so already. All right, first guy we're going to be talking about here is Tyler Warren, who, of course, is the tight end out of Penn State. And it really is clear-cut, right? Tyler Warren is the best tight end in this class. There really is no two ways about it. He is ready to make an immediate impact in the NFL as a rookie. Now, the question, of course, with Cincinnati is, will they be taking a tight end at number 17? Should they be taking a tight end at number 17? A guy like Warren can certainly improve your ball club immediately. Look at all those numbers there that you saw at Penn State. He really was a big reason as to why they were able to get to the college football playoff and have some success there as well. So it ultimately comes down to what you do if you're the Cincinnati Bengals at that number 17 overall spot. I personally don't think it would be a great idea to take a tight end, but there certainly is intrigue because they certainly could just be one superstar away from really being an unstoppable offense, and Tyler Warren could certainly fit that bill. Next up here is Colston Loveland, tight end out of Michigan. He, of course, has some injury concerns here at this point. Only played, I believe, 10 games this past year for the Wolverines, and he currently is in a sling right now. When he addressed the media here at the NFL Combine, he was in a sling, so that certainly is noteworthy when you're talking about a guy like Colston Loveland. He certainly is a big step back from Tyler Warren at that tight end position. I don't think he brings the same traits that Tyler Warren does. I really don't think he is a first-round caliber player, and if I'm the Cincinnati Bengals, I'm not even thinking about taking him in the first round. If he's available for you in the second round, maybe you consider. Next up here is Mason Taylor out of LSU. He certainly has had a lot of success in college at LSU, and he's a guy that really is a versatile player as well. He's great in the pass blocking game and is great out there catching passes as well on the football field. Bengals, of course, have been looking for a tight end that is versatile, can do multiple different things. With the uncertainty around Eric All Jr., he's going to miss the 2025 season. That is why there's so much conversation about Cincinnati perhaps taking a tight end in the NFL draft early. And Mason Taylor, I think, is a guy that could really be a solid player for you. He's a guy that you could take in the second or third round. He's not going to be a first-round guy, but I certainly have interest in Mason Taylor. He's a mature guy, and he's a big-time football player. Last up here from the tight ends is Gunnar Helm. He kind of came on the scene late. It was reported. That was kind of one of the first reports that came out that Helm did meet with the Cincinnati Bengals. Cincinnati appears to be very intrigued with what he can bring to the table out of Texas. He, too, played in some big-time football games. I always like that, having that trait, right? It doesn't mean that you can't be a phenomenal football player if you came from a smaller school. Some of the game's best players are from smaller schools. But this day and age, if you play at a big-time program like Texas, I certainly have interest. Gunnar Helm is a guy to keep an eye on if you're the Cincinnati Bengals a little bit later in the NFL draft. Leads us to the pinned comment of today's show. What position do you want the Bengals to take in round 1, pick number 17 overall? Let me know in the comments section. Whether it's offense, whether it's defense, sound off for us right now. If that ad comes here on YouTube, that's totally fine. Take advantage of it. Get down in the comments. Let us know what you think. All right, let's talk defense here on today's show. Mykel Williams is a guy we spent a ton of time talking about out of Georgia. Now, he did say in his press conference today that he played at about 60% this year for the Georgia Bulldogs. And, of course, if you have a season in which you kind of struggle a little bit and you're a highly touted prospect, I think he definitely is kind of buying into the injury concerns that are around him, letting everybody know, hey, I was playing hurt. That wasn't me at full strength that you saw in 2024 for Kirby Smart and the Georgia Bulldogs. He's a guy that has a ton of potential. But as we've talked about here a lot on this show, I want a guy that can come in on the defensive side of the ball for the Bengals and make an immediate impact. I'm talking week 1. 1 of 2025 be able to go out there and be a starter. I don't know if Mykel Williams is that guy, but if he's there at 17, I have no problems taking him. Couple more edge rushers here that we will get to. First up here out of Texas A&M. First of two guys from Texas A&M that we will be talking about here on today's show. Shemar Stewart. He too has a lot of concerns. Now he's really, really good in the run game, and that's something that really is intriguing for a lot of NFL teams. Obviously, the Bengals can be better in the run game as well, stopping the run on defense, but I want a guy that can really go out there and rush the passer, because that's certainly something that they have lacked. Opposite of Trey Hendrickson. Again, he might be more of a project guy, Shemar Stewart, and I wouldn't be surprised. He's kind of been skyrocketing up boards at this point because of that ability to stop the run. He might be gone before you have an opportunity to take him at number 17. James Pearce Jr. out of Tennessee, another formal meeting that Cincinnati has had with these prospects. James Pearce Jr. is a guy that really has a lot of upside, right? He's a guy that a lot of people think can really mold himself into a phenomenal player in the National Football League. But again, question mark, is he ready to make an impact immediately? That's the question that I have. In some big games, he kind of was not at his best, which I certainly think is a red flag when you're talking about James Pearce Jr. The game against Ohio State, the playoff game, now nobody was really getting past that Ohio State offensive line. As far as protecting the quarterback, best offensive line in college football. He struggled in that game and really didn't do a ton against Alabama either, so that is a red flag for me. But the Bengals have been linked to James Pearce Jr. pretty often here this offseason. We'll continue with our show here in a moment, but first, a quick shout-out to our friends over at Fanatics. I want to let you guys know that Bengals Sideline hats are out. They are available now. You can go check them out, chatsports.com/Bengals Sideline. I've got a few of these myself. I know it's the offseason, but that doesn't mean you can't get some Cincinnati Bengals swag. That one right there with the tiger on it, I think, is really, really cool. I really encourage you guys to head over to chatsports.com/Bengals Sideline. By the way, that link will be in the comments section and the description of today's show. Again, plenty of cool options for you over at Fanatics. Really encourage you guys to check those out and get you some Cincinnati Bengals swag. Nick Scourton said we were going to be talking about two guys from Texas A&M. He is the second. I think he's probably going to be available for you at that number 17 overall selection. I think Scourton, I think reason why maybe I'm not so bullish on Scourton is because he kind of took a step back in 2024. In 2023, he really was phenomenal with Purdue, but I don't know if he was as effective after he transferred to Texas A&M. Get after the quarterback, obviously something you desperately need with the uncertainty around Trey Hendrickson's future. Nick Scourton, certainly a guy to keep an eye on if you are the Cincinnati Bengals. Last up here from a edge rusher perspective, we got Mike Green out of Marshall. He's a guy that really has skyrocketed up teams' boards. He's got a lot of upside. If you remember, he led college football in sacks with 17 this past season. There are some off-the-field concerns with Mike Green that he did address at his presser today. Has been accused of, some sexual assault stuff, which obviously you don't want to mess around in that area, but he has never been charged. So that's certainly something to keep an eye on, but it is ultimately the reason why he transferred from Virginia, according to him. That's something that he has told reporters. So if the Bengals are convinced that he is innocent and not going to be an issue for them off the field, they might look to take him at 17. Now, we just broke down several edge rushers here in this 2025 NFL draft class. Who is your favorite edge rusher in this draft class besides Abdul Carter? Not going to count him. He's the best one despite, the injury or whatever that has popped up recently. Let me know besides him who is your favorite edge rusher. Let me know in the comments of today's show. Let's go interior here. Walter Nolen, interior defensive lineman out of Ole Miss. He's a guy that the Bengals have had a lot of communication with. They met with him at the Senior Bowl and have had a formal interview with him here at the NFL Combine as well. Kind of interesting. Does Cincinnati want to take an interior defensive lineman? You got a lot of youth in that room already. Certainly could boost that youth that you currently have by adding more bodies into that room. Again, B.J. Hill, you're not sure if he's going to be back next year. I personally would stay away from that. I think you could get a lot more out of an edge rusher or a DB as opposed to an interior defensive line guy in the first round. I think later on in the draft, certainly look at that position. But for now, I'm not going DT in round one. Walker here out of Kentucky. He's a guy that is a massive human being. He's got a lot of upside. People really believe he can carve himself out a nice career. Did only have a sack and a half this past year for the Kentucky Wildcats in 11 games played. Another one of those guys that was like, did he maybe take a step back in 2024? I think that's kind of a red flag when guys, don't finish their best in college. I think Walker certainly is a guy in that category as well. Barrett Carter, linebacker here out of Clemson. I definitely think Cincinnati needs to address the linebacker position. Hasn't been reported as of filming that Jahai Campbell has met with the Cincinnati Bengals, but Barrett Carter's a guy that has played a lot of football, and he's had a lot of success playing at a high level for the Clemson Tigers. 82 tackles this past year, 3.5 sacks, 7 pass breakups. He's pretty good in coverage as well. He's a tough physical guy. I think I really have a lot of interest in a guy like Barrett Carter coming to Cincinnati and joining forces with Logan Wilson. All right, I'm excited about this one. I know a lot of you guys are as well. Malaki Starks said the first team that he had a formal interview with was the Cincinnati Bengals. That's really a very exciting thing for me personally. Here as the host of Bengals Breakdown, I've been saying I want Malaki Starks in round 1, number 17 overall. If he's there, you got to take him. Question, of course, will he be there? Bengals really need to get better at that safety position. Malaki Starks is a guy that's a mature guy, and he can make great plays on the football. Is there some, concerns with him keeping up with the receivers? Is he a beat too slow? Maybe. But he's a really cerebral player. I absolutely love Malaki Starks, and if he's there, I'm taking him, and I'm not thinking twice about it. Trey Amos, Bengals have met with him. Bit of a surprise here. We'll see what Amos can do when he gets to the league. I think the transfer to Ole Miss, I think a lot of people were kind of scratching their head a little bit when he made that decision, but he was good for the Rebels and Lane Kiffin this past season. The Bengals, of course, need to add to their DB room. They need to bring in another corner. My concern is, are you good at drafting corners? Are you going to want to take one early? Think of the guys that you've taken early at that position. Guy like Dax Hill. Yeah, it looked like he was poised for a breakout year in 2024. He gets injured. DJ Turner, all right, he gets injured as well, but he didn't start out as good as you were hoping out of Michigan. Certainly Cam Taylor-Britt, you were looking at him to be a bona fide one for you at that cornerback spot, and that certainly has not happened. Bengals need to address that cornerback spot. We'll see if they take a chance on Trey Amos. Kevin Winston Jr. here, safety out of Penn State. I really like this guy. Penn State, that defense was really, really good for James Franklin this past year. Obviously, Abdul Carter gets a ton of credit for that, but they were good and solid on the back end. And I think Kevin Winston Jr. was a guy that was really a main reason why they were able to be successful. Again, the DBs, safety, needs to be addressed in this draft for the Cincinnati Bengals. And a guy like Kevin Winston Jr. could certainly come in and do some good things for you. Only played those 3 games in 2024, but in 2023, I think he was a real staple for the Penn State Nittany Lions there at that safety spot. I certainly have some interest in Kevin Winston Jr. Make sure you guys hit that sub button if you have not done so already. That's youtube.com/BengalsTV. We are here the rest of the week at the NFL Combine. Don't miss any of our coverage. Hit that sub button right now.